Mr. Brown from the Delta Counties Coalition, then Mr. Zuckerman. Mr. Brown.
Good morning, Doug Brown, Delta Counties Coalition. I assume this mic is working. I think
it is working.
Problem. You can't hear yourself right here. I will speak even louder just so I can hear myself. So my concern is related to the membership of the Implementation Committee. And I have to say I'm a bit befuddled in looking through this list of agencies. And Mr. Fiorini, you indicated that the locals were represented, but I can't find a single local agency here. There is the Delta Protection Commission, but that is a state agency. And this is an implementation committee that's intended to implement the Delta plan in the Delta, which will directly affect Delta residents, Delta businesses, the Delta government, the counties in the Delta. And there's no restriction within Water Code 85204 that says these agencies need to be federal or state agencies. And I understand the concern about having a body that's a little too unwieldy, but this is a body that meets every 6 months. It seems like having a few more people on it is something that could be managed. And it just doesn't make sense to me to have a body like this where you're creating something where there's so much distrust in the Delta now. You're creating this federal-state entity, a bureaucracy, to kind of oversee the Delta and kind of take care of the Delta. And it really gives the wrong message. It just conveys that, the state and federal agencies are here to take care of things. You guys don't have to worry. And just not having that local representation, I just think it sends the wrong message. It's the wrong way of starting this out. And it is frustrating from our standpoint. We see examples where you have an entity that has local involvement, the Delta Stewardship Council. And I would have to say we have excellent representation from a local standpoint. And it's worked well.
Hard not to say that given the circumstances.
and it works well. It hasn't caused dysfunction in this body. And so the concern of well, the concern of having some local representation, whether it be the counties or reclamation districts or flood control agencies or some sort of local representation, just makes sense.
Doug, can I ask you a question? If we, in this mix, had a member of a county board of supervisors present, would that satisfy your concern about local representation?
Well, I think it moves in the right direction. I think there are other agencies that would make sense, local agencies that would make sense of being participating as well.
I understand. But with the idea of keeping it small, if there is a county supervisor present in the current mix, you would agree that would address having somebody with local interests on the implementation committee?
I would agree that would improve the situation.
Okay. Well, that's the current, if you include either the chair or the vice chair of the Delta Protection Commission, you will have a member of the Board of Supervisors.
No, but you're identifying, they're there representing the Delta Protection Commission. That's their role. And so we want a role for either a county supervisor.
So you want 2 county supervisors on the...
What we want is local representation. We don't want state agencies only or federal agencies only. Right now, it's state and federal agencies only.
But you'll have a member of a county board of supervisors there.
But that member's charge is to represent the Delta Protection Commission as a state agency.
Mr. Chairman, I think Doug makes exactly the relevant point. The people who will be on this have broader responsibilities than advocacy on behalf of their local interests. There are a lot of other public agencies with a stake in the implementation committee, Kern County Water Agency, Metropolitan Water District, Westlands Water District. They too are public agencies. What this implementation committee does will affect them. It's important to have the implementation committee implement priorities that are complicated in tension and have to consider a wider range of priorities than the interests of an only local agency or point of view. I don't think this is a stakeholder committee. I think it's a responsible body to help implement a law and a plan. And so local representation comes about both because it's in several of these bodies, as it was noted, and because local representation from whatever source, and certainly the Delta, will be included specifically, according to Randy as the chair and Taran as staff, and our desire, when the topic fits the knowledge and interests of the people who are involved. So, in addition to that, if it's all public and people know what's going on, you and others can raise that point that we should be included because this subject does relate to this county or the supervisors or a given reclamation district. But I would object to going down the path of adding local advocates. There are too many of them, and even if we had enough room to accommodate a representative here and there, the reason for their being there is to advocate a narrow perspective. By its nature, we have a much more complicated and statewide charge.
I just say I would disagree with that as far as representing a narrow interest. For one, these are decision makers. If it's a county supervisor, they're a decision maker for the county. Their role is to represent the constituents in their county, and they would be representing that. And as far as representing entities in the Delta, if there are projects, the Delta plan is intended to deal with covered actions. That's related to any activity in the Delta. So if you have landowners in the Delta that want to do some sort of development project, those could be considered covered actions. Those could be water contractors. You could have a water contractor that wants to implement some sort of project. And that representation is provided by the locals who would be able to coordinate with that water contractor. They coordinate with the landowners. They understand the local interests, and they understand the land use issues and how that relates to the Delta plan. Whereas a lot of these federal agencies are coming in at a much higher level. So I think there's real value there.
Doug, you raise a good example, and that's precisely what the Delta Stewardship Council staff will be in place to do 5 days a week, week after week. We're not going to wait for 6 months to deal with issues like this. So when issues like that arise, the Delta Stewardship Council staff has expertise involved to help assist with local agencies, interest groups, and so on. It's a little bit different than what we're talking about at the implementation committee level. So your needs will be addressed, and you don't have to wait 6 months to have a need like that addressed. That's what the Delta Stewardship Council exists to do and to help with.
Yeah, it just sounds like you're saying, don't worry, we'll have staff talk to your staff and everything's okay. And it's not important to be on the implementing committee. It's just, you don't have to worry about it because we've got very important people on that committee. We've got federal agencies, state agencies, and so, don't worry about it. And I don't mean to be flippant about this. It's just, it's a bit frustrating.
You complimented the Stewardship Council and its makeup for providing local representation.
Yes.
The implementation committee, as it exists today in its proposed form, is exactly the same makeup as the council that you complimented.
This list of agencies is the same makeup as the
Your local
Stewardship Council.
interests represented on the Delta Stewardship Council is the chairman of the Delta Protection Commission. You
Well, that's
complemented.
correct, but we didn't. We wanted actually more representation. With
Well,
the,
we all
with
do.
the- so,
We all do.
yeah. But the way it's structured now, we don't have local interests really involved. These are state agencies still. It's just frustrating from our standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.